Hello and welcome to this fantastic webinar on innovative solutions for rural youth employment, policy and practice. I already see people doing this, but please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're connecting from. So this webinar is hosted by YouthForesight, the global knowledge facility jointly managed by the Global Initiative on Decent Jobs for Youth and Generation Unlimited. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Edward Huntley Orellana, and I will be co-moderating this event with my fantastic colleague, Bemanat. We are from the World Food Forum, the Global Youth Action Initiative, hosted by the Office of Youth and Women of the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, or FAO for short. Our initiative is developed by youth and for youth, established to harness the power and the passion of youth to transform our agri-food systems. So we aim to advance youth engagement in food governance, foster innovation, and support youth-led solutions for a sustainable agri-food transformation. Now, I just want to say a huge thank you to the co-organizers of this event, the International Labour Organization, the European Commission, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development for creating a space for discussion surrounding a really critical topic. So according to a recent FAO report titled The State of Youth in Agri-Food Systems, there are over 1.3 billion youth worldwide, and almost half of them are living in rural areas. However, over 25% of youth are not in employment, education, or training, and 2/3 of which are young women. So in this context, we're going to be hearing from a great presentation and a great selection of speakers, blending perspectives from the EU Commission, DG Agri, IFAD, and a young entrepreneur. So before we get started, I just want to bring up a couple housekeeping notes. So the session will be recorded and the recording will be made available on the event webpage after the webinar. Your microphones will be muted during the session, but please feel free to ask your questions at any time using the chat or the Q&A box. We'll be monitoring both throughout the webinar. Now, I'm going to pass the floor to the International Labour Organization for a presentation on promoting decent jobs for rural youth, the ILO perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edward. My name is Elisenda Struck Puertas. I work as Rural Economy Specialist in the Sectoral Policies Department at the ILO. It's great to be with all of you. Indeed, as Edward was introducing to us, we are covering a very, very important topic. It affects many, many million people around the world, especially in developing countries, where we see that there are youthful populations trying to find a future in ever-changing food systems. From the ILO, we worked closely with other partners, and I'm happy to see most of them, the ones that we work more closely in this topic today, in this event. And we've been thinking about what are the solutions and what can be the approaches. First, we start by looking what are the challenges, but at the same time, the potential. The challenges that young people can face as they transition from education or from childhood towards employment and their integration into the labor market, which happens in a context which are rural economies, and oftentimes agriculture or the agri-food sector is the mainstay in many of them. But we also acknowledge that there is a diversity of rural contexts as well, and there can be other sectors that are offering opportunities, and what are the challenges in that regard. But Edward already mentioned a little bit of that. Unfortunately, many young people don't find opportunities, neither in education or in other forms of training, or even in accessing the labor market. And there is a strong gender dimension in there that I hope we will also be looking into it as we further go ahead in this webinar. The second element I want to mention is the quality of the jobs. Those young people who happen to find an opportunity, they are oftentimes in informal employment. And that means that they don't have protection. They often don't have access to social protection in the event of an accident or even in the event of losing their jobs. They might not be accessing any type of support or facilitation into finding another opportunity of employment. Opportunities in the informal sector for finding decent jobs, as we call those that are enhancing their opportunities and the quality, are scarce and more exposed to poor working conditions, low pay, and no representation. And that means having no voice. Recently, we have seen, I think it's been already 2 days, that the social justice report by the ILO has been released. It also underlines what we had found in our brief, and it's the fact that young people that are being disattached and they don't have their aspirations fulfilled, there's a discontent and a resentment and not having a place and a space to express their needs and their will in the future of, in this case, agri-food systems, as Edward was mentioning. There is an ongoing transformation, and young people want to have a place, and they should have a place in the table in discussing and shaping what can be the future. We see that food systems are being transformed, both because of mega trends associated, of course, to changing shifts from the demographic point of view, migration, and so on and so forth. But also we see the impact of climate change and being rural areas and the agri-food system highly exposed, but also playing a role in shaping a just transition to more environmentally sustainable economies. And at the same time, we see that there is a digitalization, and there young people can have a key role in facilitating this transformation also in this context. What can we do? Well, the challenges are many, and we require integrated approaches. And at the ILO, and as we have presented in that brief and in other documents, and I think Chiara will allude more to that, it's a matter of intervening both on the labor demand side, the supply side of the labor market, and making ways to combine both sides of the labor market and facilitating those transitions. It's not only about creating more opportunities, but it's about creating quality opportunities. That means that young people need to have rights. They need to be aware about what are their rights at work and have the possibility to stand up to their rights and have a voice in the table. And that it's strongly pursued through spaces of dialogue, social dialogue among the different parties, and ensuring that there is a youth inclusive process. So I think many of us today are showing the importance of that and showing the importance of moving ahead in collaboration with other partners. And with that, I pass the floor to Chiara, who I think she will share a little bit more of some of these innovative solutions that we are putting forward at the ILO. So the floor is yours, Chiara.
Thank you, Elisenda. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today and joining us in this very exciting conversation and discussion on a topic that it's very relevant, but why it matters so much. No, I mean, I'm glad that both Edward and Elisenda already highlighted, the core of this topic, which is the fact that in the end, rural youth make up a significant share of the new entrants to the labor market, particularly in low and middle income countries. And yet, as Elisenda already mentioned, they are often trapped in informality, working poverty, and limited prospect for wage employment. So if we do not act, now many will migrate away from rural areas, threatening the vitality of rural communities. So this is a little bit also the focus that we really like to cover in today's discussion as well. But as already introduced by my dear colleague Elisenda, one size fits all could not apply when a context such as rural areas are facing multiple determinants and multiple challenges, right? So what the ILO calls for is an integrated approach, an integrated and coordinated approach that is gender sensitive, rights-based, but especially underpinned by social dialogue. So instead of fragmented measures, we need solutions that bring together demand-side policies that stimulate job creation from one hand, supply side measures like skills and apprenticeships, and also, as Elisanda mentioned, effective matching through labor market institutions. So this means aligning national youth employment strategies with broader rural development and sectoral policies. So there are several promising pathways, and through today's discussion, we will hear directly from other speakers and our partners concrete examples and successful stories on how this could be done. But just to mention and highlight some of them, I would like to start saying that boosting the agri-food sector is, of course, key, right? Increasing productivity across value chains creates opportunities both for youth-led enterprises and for wage jobs. Tapping into rural non-farm sectors, it's also a new effective approach, and I'm glad that we have Brian Chipiri from IFAD that will talk more about this, after this presentation. But just to mention, in anything that is non-farm sector per se, activities like processing, marketing, tourism, and forestry can be labor-intensive but also youth-friendly. Public employment programs can fill gaps in rural labor markets, especially through infrastructure and water management projects. But of course, and Elisanda already mentioned at the beginning, we have new sectors that can be very attractive for young women and have a very high potential for job creation. Those, for instance, are green and blue economies, and also the global employment trends for youth published in 2020 show that by 2030, an estimated 8.4 million additional jobs for youth could be created globally through sustainable agriculture, forestry, aquaculture, and other climate-friendly initiatives. Something to bear in mind. And of course, digital transformation is already happening as we speak. It's affecting many countries all over the world, and expanding rural connectivity and digital skills can open up access to training, services, and new markets, while also making agricultural work safer and more attractive for young people. So, of course, there are other ways, other pathways that may be proven successful. I'm glad that we're going to hear directly from our speakers some concrete examples, but please allow me to leave with a very important message, which is, unleashing rural youth potential. It's also about protecting rights at work, so fair wages, safe conditions, and access to social protection, and also ensuring their meaningful engagement in social dialogue, but also in our programming and policy. So young people's voices must shape the policies that concern their future. And it's even more, I'm so proud that today we're going to hear directly the experience from one of the beneficiaries of a rural youth employment project funded by IFAD, implemented by ILO. And in conclusion, before passing the floor to this exciting panel, promoting decent jobs for youth is not just a standalone objective. This is, the takeaway that I would like you to take from this conversation. It is part and parcel of an inclusive rural transformation, green transition, social justice, but also an intergenerational transformation that affects rural communities. So with the right mix of policies, partnership, and youth engagement, rural economies can truly become engines of opportunities for the next generation. So thank you so much. And Edward, I leave it back to you.
Thank you to you both for developing the context for this discussion, showing how multifaceted this challenge is, spanning gender, geographic dimensions, but as well sharing potential pathways for an inclusive and sustainable transformation. In the interest of time, I'm going to pass directly to my colleague Bemonet to get this panel discussion underway. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edward. It's very nice to have you guys. And thank you for Elisanda and Chiara really highlighting the overall approach that ILO has, ensuring that it's integrated and coordinated, highlighting the gender-sensitive part and also the right-based approach as well. So moving from that, we are going to look at the innovative practice and the real-world impact under our panel, which is titled as Innovative Solutions and Country Experiences. We'll flow from policy strategy, discussing with an EU expert, to programmatic lessons from IFAD and actual a voice on the ground from a young woman that is an agripreneur. We're going to start off with Elena Schubert, who's an equality coordinator and team leader for social issues at European Commission. Elena, my first question for you is going to be looking at the high policy perspective from the European Commission, and that you guys have highlighted a generational renewal in your 2025 strategy. Could you please tell us how we can make the agri-food sector much more attractive for youth? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me and see me. So first of all, generational renewal is a real priority for the European Commission. Why? Because we have farming population that is aging. The average age of farmers is 57 years, and only 12% of the whole population are farmers below age 40. And you have very rightly pointed out how important is the gender dimension. And in this context, I would like to say that females only represent 3% of farm managers who are younger than 40 years. So this is obviously a very clear call for all of us in the European Union to do something about that. So what are we doing about that? First of all, we have the common agricultural policy in the European Union to support the farmers who deliver the food for the population in the European Union. Let me point out that for young farmers below age 40, the European Union, under the current programming period 2023-2027, provides 8.5 billion on income support and investment opportunities, including additional support for young farmers who are engaged in farming activity. Let me just put these figures into numbers. So around 400,000 farms are expected or are receiving the support, the investment support from common agricultural policy. And that in again numbers is translated to the support to 377,000 young farmers who are installed as head of farms by 2027. Let me also say that we have other support for young farmers to engage in farming activities. For example, through producer organizations, where they can strengthen their competitiveness and the position in the value chain. The European Union and us, the European Commission, works very closely with the European Investment Bank. This cooperation is crucial when it comes to the provision of access to finance, because as you know, and I can imagine it's not the case only for the European Union farmers, young farmers and women at the same time, they face problems when it comes to access to land, access to capital, but also access to skills. So this is something that we very much push, and we do everything to enhance. Let me point out that we also have a very strong policy to enhance the right to stay for all those young people who wish to do so in rural areas, and to support them when they want to engage into farming activity or into rural economy. We have a dedicated long-term vision for rural areas strategy that, in one of the sections of this strategy, focuses on the support to rural youth and on the support for all young people who would like to engage in rural economy. In terms of the future, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we have a new commission headed by President von der Leyen and Commissioner Christoph Hansen, who is in charge of agriculture and rural areas. Commissioner Hansen declared that generational renewal and the future for young farmers is at the center of his of his policies that he's going to implement and is implementing. Here, I would like to say that the Commission is preparing the strategy on generational renewal for farmers. It is not yet finalized, so I cannot enter into details because we are still working on it. We are with all the services. But here, what I can say at this time already is that the strategy will focus as it is now, and will even enhance and accelerate investments into access to land, access to credit, access to knowledge and innovation, access to rural services, and social security coverage for farmers. Let me finish my intervention by pointing out that particularly access to knowledge and innovation plays a very important role in the common agricultural policy and our support when it comes to farmers and young farmers in particular, because we know that young farmers have extreme potential when it comes to the use of high-tech IT tools, artificial intelligence, and this is where we support our farmers in a very strong way, for example, and including also the Horizon Europe program, which is the biggest program for research and innovation in the world. And here, a part of this budget under Horizon Europe is also allocated for the needs of progressing in knowledge and innovation and research for young farmers. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to our joint discussion dedicated to this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena. I think you have highlighted some really great points, saying that only 12% of the European farmers are under the age 40, and clearly highlighting that the EU is really not just looking at linking the youth to just the farm, but overall to the value chain ecosystem. You have highlighted the main issues that not only European farmers, young European farmers, or just in general from the world face are, of course, access to inputs, which could be access to land, which is very critical, access to credit, access to skills, and specifically knowledge and innovation, which is the main panel point at this stage. So just to give us a really brief highlight or additional highlight, could you please tell us, out of all the strategies that you've mentioned, one or two, which of them have been much more effective in terms of connecting the rural youth to agriculture and making it more attractive?
Well, thank you very much. I would like to say that this is not about one program, one strategy, one project. It's really about the synergies that we have. So we have on one hand the support and policies provided by the Common Agricultural Policy, which is one of the oldest policies in the European Union. And at the same, so that provides the policy framework, the framework for the priorities when it comes to the funds allocation, right? The EU member states operate with other common agricultural policy strategic plans where they explain what their priorities are, and then they get the related funding. This is one way. The second area which is important is the rural areas. We all know that farmers operate mostly, not only, but mostly in rural, remote areas, which have the certain challenges compared to urban areas or cities. For example, just the availability of the social support services, such as healthcare, education, schools, or the availability of essential services, water, sanitation, broadband. The distance that they have to travel from their rural area to, for example, hospital or the bank, this all plays a role, and farmers have very specific challenges. And we try to, and what we are doing, we are establishing synergies between our CAP strategic plans and the rural area strategies. For example, as I mentioned, there we have this long-term vision for rural area strategies that entail, or that includes a set of actions that are important for the development of rural areas. And here comes to the play not only common agricultural policy funds and programs, but also other Commission programs and European Union programs and funding. For example, funding for the regional development, funding for the European Social Fund to fund social capital and enhance social capital, including in rural areas. And this is where we work together and we establish this synergy and coherent policy and funding framework for the benefit of our farmers. So I unfortunately could not single out what is more or less important. Important is the coherence, the synergies, and the way and the ideal interplay amongst these various funds and policies. And this is what we are doing precisely. And in order to enhance and underline the importance of young farmers, we are now putting in place generational renewal strategy that will fit into this puzzle in the orchestra of these instruments, policy instruments and funding, just for the benefit of our young farmers and for the whole EU population, because we do benefit from the work of young farmers. They are essential for us.
Thank you so much, Elena, for highlighting how it's not just one strategy, but the entire strategy. It's a coherent and synergized action of different means working together to empower the rural youth and the young farmer as well. So while looking at that, we're going to move on to Brian, who is a technical specialist for youth employment at IFAD, International Fund for Agricultural Development. Brian, we've seen that the integrated agribusiness hubs are not just a programmatic model, but they're a programmatic model and not just a training tool. We have seen that it has spanned across 9 African countries. And if you could share with us what were the key emerging lessons that you have gathered while implementing this model within the 9 countries, and you can highlight any specific country that you feel would bring your case more clear to our audience. Over to you, Brian.
Okay, thank you. So basically, the Integrated Agribusiness Hub program, as you have rightly stated, it's operational across 9 African countries. Maybe before I go into the key lessons which have been emerging, maybe I like the background. It has been operational for 5 years. This is the last year of implementation. So its design was in 2019, and IFAD, we thought of creating this program because we have a strong focus on youth, especially the rural youth. So we did do a lot of consultations. We consulted the youth across a lot of continents, Africa, as well as Asia, even the Latin America, just to understand their aspirations. Then we realized that actually the majority of the youth, they needed these decent jobs. It's not only the self-employment as well as the wage jobs. So that's how we designed, and we had this focus of creating 70% of those total jobs, which we had the focus of 22,550 across the 9 African countries to be wage jobs. Then the other 30% to be self-employment. Then we were launching it in a phased approach just to see that as we implement, we are even capturing some lessons, and which has been helpful to gather up to this time where we have reached. We are in the end of the implementation. And it has informed a lot of learnings as well as for the next phase, which we are aiming to launch next year. So some of the, as I mentioned, we had a focus of creating 22,550 decent jobs. Then as of June this year, I think we have surpassed that figure by 262%. So we have really created a lot of jobs, which are standing at close to over 60,000 jobs across the African countries. So it is evident that the jobs have been there, but some of the major lessons which we are seeing for them to be sustainable, there have been some missing support services, which are the employment service or labor market intermediation service providers, as well as the business development support services. These have been much provided by the program, not to say by the ecosystem actors, but to ensure sustainability. We are seeing that maybe if we can strengthen this so that we build capacity in existing or create new support services so that there is that continuation as well as sustainability of the job being created. Because we focus much not only on the jobs being created as well as jobs being preserved. So that has been one of the key lessons coming out. Then the other is on the gender barriers have been persistent. We have realized that at output levels, we can target as many as possible the young women, but as they transition to outcomes, the number reduces. So we have learned that there should be persistent gender barriers which are lending to the young women not to transition into outcomes, but just having a lot of them at output levels. They will attend the trainings, they'll do what, but for them to transition either to start up a business or to grow their business is challenging as compared to their male counterparts. So we have realized that by the way the program in its initial design, it was designed to be gender targeting. So we have realized that now, I think the next phase, which should be gender transformative, so that we address the root causes of these gender barriers, so as even to leverage with other programs who are trying to address maybe the social nouns, so that we can see how we can leverage on the technical and financial resources. Then the other lessons which are coming out is on the post-training support after the youth capacity built. Then we need to strengthen that hand-holding, both pathways, be it wage employment or self-employment. For wage employment, we have seen some young ones who participate in various work-based learning programs, but in terms maybe they are not absorbed, then the follow-ups is weak. Then we want to see where there is a strong follow-up so that they are integrated in the labor market. Same for the self-employment. We are seeing without much hand-holding, the failure rates are high, but if they are being supported continuously through business development support and other support which are tailored to the specific needs of the youth segment, I think we are seeing some more chances of survival of the business as well as the business growing. Then another lesson we have learned, which is emerging, is across here we have the program has generated 60,000 decent jobs to say, but we have seen not all of these are where we can qualify them as decent jobs. We can say maybe 30 to 35% they are not decent, but how can we make all of them decent? So we have the program has learned that actually a decent job, you can not create it once, but you can build it from being indecent to putting it to be decent. So we have realized that working with the micro and small medium enterprises, which have been the major employers of these young ones, but working closely with them to enhance their productivity as well as to ensure their business grow so that they stimulate demand for wage labor, as well as to build capacity in their human resource management capacities of these SMEs. They tend up to provide some decent working environment for the young ones, and the young ones, as they access these jobs, you feel that their aspirations are fulfilled. So those are some of the most emerging lessons which are coming across the program. And another one maybe which relates to behavior of the youth, because as a program, we have interacted much with the youth. We have even realized that their behaviors, usually the youth, they are not, they don't usually have long-term plans, or to say they usually change options so frequently. You find they will say they're interested in this, but after some over time, you find they have changed their focus. So we have so understood how to work with them so closely so that to understand their dynamics in terms of priorities, but also strengthen now the areas of soft skills training so that they are put in a place where they can plan their aspirations and visions rightly, and where they end up succeeding. Then I think I'll end here. Maybe later on, then I can give him some more specific examples per country. Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's clear to see that this is a very complex, but at the same time, effective approach, considering that you guys have already surpassed your goal of 22,550 jobs across all the different countries. It's great to see that it's a phased approach and it's focusing on the missing components that are not only creating jobs, but ensuring that it's sustainable. And in addition, moving forward, that you guys are going to be looking at the gender barriers and making it a more integrated approach. So just to build on that, you have told us a different approach that you have used, but if you could highlight one or two cases from the different countries, for example, maybe Malawi or Rwanda, that was critical in helping people, rural and young farmers access decent jobs in the agri-food sector.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start with Rwanda. So Rwanda, I think it's a country where we had some good interventions being piloted or being implemented, which encompassed, which included the public-private partnership interventions, where because as a program we promote, we have the lead implementing partner, then the lead implementing partner will encourage them to form a consortium with local agencies. It could be government agencies or other just local organization within the country, just to encourage the knowledge transfer, so as skills, as well as just to enhance that working together within the development actors. So in Rwanda, we have Crimo Trust, our lead implementing partner. Then they have formed a consortium with the Rwanda Polytechnic, as well as the Rwanda Polytechnic. I think it oversees TVET boards there. Then we have even in the Rwanda Youth in Agro Business Forum. So we have civil society plus the public agents plus and a development actor. So we have that arrangement as a consortium. Then the implementation, we have seen some arrangements where through the TVETs, where these young ones are taken for in-classroom trainings. We find the private, the agribusiness companies having to partner with some TVET institutes in terms of, you understand, the agribusiness firms, sometimes they are advanced, and not even sometimes, usually they're advanced in terms of technology. So we have arrangements where the private companies set up their factories at TVET institutes in such a way that that factory will be providing some skills transfer to the TVET institute, not just the learners, but so as the instructors. Then the youth also find that through the program, the youth pass through those TVET institutes for them to be capacity built. So we have realized that the youth there, they are accessing up-to-date skills which are really market focused, which are really needed by the industry. So we have realized those kind of partnerships, they are even sustainable, because even with that program support, but that relationship will go ahead between the private sector, which has set up a factory at a training institution, as well as the training institution leasing out the land to allow its instructors also to be upskilled or reskilled, as well as its learners, those following the formal pathway, and as well as those under the program who are supported, the young ones supported the rural youth under the program to acquire those market level relevant skills, and they access decent jobs in these private companies where their skills and competences are needed. So we have seen that as a very good approach, as well as Rwanda went extra miles to include even the most vulnerable youth, those the rural youth with disability, whereby mostly you find those with disability, they may be supported just entrepreneurship, but in Rwanda they were supported to access decent wage jobs, where they had to work closely with a private company, which had some of, it was encouraged for it to have to include those vulnerable youth in its workforce as part of its even corporate social responsibility. Then the training was designed in such a way that it happened at the company in the industry, so that it was even really adaptive to the needs of the vulnerable youth who were trained. And for today, I can report 89 rural young ones with the vision disability have been employed in Rwanda, which has been a very good case. Then for Malawi, again, we give Malawi a lot as well, but due to time factor, maybe I will limit to 2 examples as well. For Malawi, I think we are seeing some direct trainings in the industry, where there are these companies or SMEs which are acting like training hubs, where instead of working with the government institutions or public private institutions, but these in Malawi are having in the private sector, who are SMEs or large companies, providing much of the skill development, direct hosting the youth at their enterprises, be it a farm or others, where the youth they get plucked to hand-on skills direct at the enterprise. Then again, working closely with the government agencies, because we find they are getting these skills in the direct in the industry, but we bring in now again what we are calling recognized prior learning, working through the TVETA authority in Malawi. We have found that these, as they are being trained in the industry, but the TVETA board working closely with the program and other key stakeholders, they are getting certified their skills and competences so that their competitiveness in the labor market is enhanced, or their recommendations maybe to financial institutions for them to be able to run a profitable and viable business is enhanced, so that their skills and competences are getting certified formally. So those are some of the good examples. Then to ensure again, not every, to ensure everyone is included, because at IFAD we have a strong focus on social inclusion. I think we are seeing good experiences again from Malawi, where they're working with the young producer groups, especially in the dairy value chain, where these producer groups, they are capacity built, then they are provided with access to readily available market as well as some finance through working in those producer groups. And we find these producer groups, they even represent even those the least represented, they will find them there in the group. So we find the inclusion aspect is being addressed much in Malawi as well. Thank you. I'll end here. Over.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's great that you have highlighted both Rwanda and Malawi and for sharing those concrete success factors. So to complete this cycle, the fact that your last story was about Malawi, we're going to introduce Clara Komalovo, who is a young agripreneur straight from Malawi. She's sadly having connectivity issues, but she's going to have a brief second to introduce herself. After that, we're going to have a short video of her that she has willingly recorded because she really wants her voice heard in this discussion. So, Clara, if you could briefly introduce yourself and we can hear what you have to say.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been amazing listening to all the other presenters, great insights, and I am honored to be part of this great conversation, to get my voice heard. So thank you so much, and Bennett can go forward to beam my video. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Clara. Now we will have a look at her video and see what Clara has to say.
Greetings. My name is Clara Kamromu. I am a farmer, an entrepreneur, and the founder of Amazing Bee Projects in Malawi. Over the years, I have trained more than 11,000 people, mostly young people and women who today are not only running their own businesses, but also employing others. I am honored to take part in this discussion and share my story, my journey, and why I believe young people hold the key to transforming food systems in Africa. I come from a background where farming was not seen as an exciting career, especially for young people. Many of us grew up thinking that farming is just about carrying a hoe, working under the sun, and waiting for handouts. But my life experiences taught me something different. At one point, I had lost hope and felt there was no way forward. Yet, it was through farming and agribusiness that I found a new path. I turned the little I had into something that could grow, not just crops, but opportunities. And this is how I founded Amazing Bee Projects, to make sure that no other young person gives up because they think farming is only about suffering. I am a living evidence that organizations like IFAD, ILO can really change lives of young people. I am a living evidence that with skills and right support, farming is profitable, sustainable, and dignified. So at our Amazing Bee Projects, we empower youths and women through teaching them different agriculture practical skills. So as a young agripreneur, I believe policymakers and international organizations should create an enabling environment where young people see agriculture not just as survival, but as a business opportunity. This means creating access to affordable financing, modern farming technologies, reliable markets, and training programs that are practical rather than just theory. Promoting youth-friendly policies that reduce barriers to land ownership and promoting value addition are also key to this success. When young people see a clear path to profitability and innovation in agriculture, they will be motivated to join and stay in the sector. Agriculture becomes attractive when it is modern, profitable, and empowering. Introducing digital tools, climate-smart practices, and opportunities for agribusiness startups makes farming exciting. Youth want to see agriculture linked with entrepreneurship, innovation, and lifestyle improvement, and not poverty. Building agribusiness incubation centers can also empower more young people to join. We should position agriculture as a career of choice and not a fallback option. When I started Amazing Bee projects, one of the biggest challenges was limited access to finance and resources to scale my ideas. Another challenge was breaking through traditional mindsets where agriculture was seen as unattractive, especially for young women. However, opportunities came through trainings, mentorship, and international platforms where I was able to share my story and learn from others. A good example is the Work Integrated Learning Program, where I was picked and learned all the things that I am doing now. And this was an IFAD funded program, and it was being run by ILO. Okay, so the most useful support has been capacity building, networking opportunities, and visibility at both local and global stages. Participating in forums like the UNFSS4 Food Systems Forum gave me credibility and opened doors for partnerships. What proved to be effective for me was the combination of innovation with community empowerment. At Amazing Bee Projects, we trained farmers, for example, in manure making and low inputs farming techniques, helping them produce more with fewer resources. This not only improves food security, but also reduces dependency on expensive inputs like fertilizer. To accelerate my business, I invested in storytelling, sharing my journey as a young female farmer who transformed challenges into opportunities. By speaking at national and international events, engaging policymakers, and showcasing real impact in communities, my voice was amplified. Recognition and awards also boosted trust in my work, making it easier to attract partners and clients. And what has helped me grow is consistency, passion, and the ability to turn small wins into bigger opportunities. Each training session, each partnership, and each recognition has added up to where Amazing Bee Project is. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Clara, for that very interesting video. It really shows that the cycle of opportunity. She started as a beneficiary, and now she's an employer and a mentor. And at the end of the day, youth actually creating decent jobs for other youth is the ultimate success factor. So I guess that sets the stage for the Q&A. And we've seen the bigger picture, the challenges, and the policy, as well as the on-the-ground solutions. And we're going to start off with some questions. And I have one question here from Charles Tembo. He stated, having recently participated in the Industrial Scale Africa Week, he wishes to contribute to today's conversation by highlighting that agri-food systems hold immense promise for rural youth, even though there are persistent barriers that we've mentioned, such as informality, lack of resources, limited skills, and very weak integration to the value chains. And he wanted to ask in this context how international and youth-led organizations can ensure policy guidance and promising models, such as the integrated agribusiness hubs, are not only showcased, but scaled sustainably to reach more rural youth across Africa. So I'm going to leave the stage to either Elena or Brian to have a start.
Well, I could only limit myself to the European Union because I only can share what we are doing in the European Union, right? I don't know if you want me to proceed. Yeah?
Proceed, of course.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would like to say that I absolutely agree that rural youth, this is the future. This is the future of our planet. This is the future of the European Union. In the European Union, even more, because according to the data that we have and demographic prognosis, by 2050, the population of persons 85 plus will double, and the population of persons in productive age, 20 to 64, will decrease to a considerable extent. So we have very, very big challenges. On top of it, rural areas in the European Union make up around 80% of the territory. And despite of the big territory that they are taking, only the very minor part of the population, of the EU population, is in the rural areas. And if we see the youth rural exodus that is going on in the European Union, there is a big worry and big problems and challenges that our rural areas at one point in time become depopulated to such an extent that we will not be able to run a sustainable agriculture and sustainable farms. And this is really a question not only for rural areas and its preservedness and the preservedness of our European model way of living, but it is the question of security. This is the question of food security that we have. So, in other words, the rural youth and the standards of living for rural youth and the opportunities that rural youth finds in rural area is essential for the European Union to survive and to thrive and to have these basic needs fulfilled, such as food security. Yes. So what can we do here is, of course, we are trying to provide rural youth with, first of all, services. We need to enhance our investments into services, not only essential services such as broadband, sanitary, water, electricity, but also social support services, but also leisure activities, culture. We have to make rural areas interesting for young people. And also, what I also already said in my presentation, it is the access to finance, right? So they can establish startups, that they can embrace and use their potential when it comes to the establishment of enterprises. I don't know if this is
that is correct. Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks.
That is a very thorough answer. And considering our time, Brian, maybe if you could just give us one or two sentences to conclude on what Elena has to say, and we can move it over to Edward for the closing remarks.
Okay, thank you. I'll be quick. So to scale up the initiative, I think from IFAD, we have a strong focus on youth. Even our next governing council, which is next in February, one of the theme will be youth and jobs. So we are trying by all means, even in our loan investments, working through the governments, we are trying to also co-design with government programs which are embedding the agribusiness hub models. Then apart from that, we have seen that the model has worked and has delivered the impressive results. We are now preparing for phase 2, which will start next year. And the phase 2, we are saying will deepen into existing 9 countries, as well as expand to new countries, which will be not only in Africa, but as well as in Asia. Thank you, and I'll end here.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Elena, Brian, Clara, and all our panelists for this incredibly informative and engaging panel. Your insights have beautifully connected all the dots between policy, programs, and of course, young empowered individuals, specifically young farmers. So Edward, I'm going to give it back to you for the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. What a great conversation. I think my key takeaway from that session is that the barriers to meaningful youth inclusion are incredibly complicated, but overcoming these can have co-benefits across various different sustainable development objectives, promoting decent employment, addressing climate change and gender disparities. It seems that there's no singular solution, but this rather requires a systemic change. So I encourage all participants to continue this discussion and engaging with this critical issue. I'd like to thank the speakers, the organizers, and everyone for taking the time to join us today. Please know that today's session was recorded and it will be made available on the web event page after this webinar. The link to the page is available in the chat. Before leaving, please make sure to share with us your feedback on the session, which should be just popping up on your screen now like it did on mine. And again, we'd just like to say a big thank you for joining us today.